Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Hey, Bill.
Welcome to our Welch School Building Committee meeting. This is being broadcast by our Peabody Access Television and online and through Zoom and through the magic of technology. So if we have any members of the public watching, I welcome you all. This is a subcommittee meeting where we will be updating all the school building committee members regarding our Welch School MSBA project. And we are going to meet for the first time our selected owner's project manager, which is Dorr and Whittier. So today, my plan is to bring our committee members up to date on the current status of our project. And also, oh, thank you. Here's the agenda. We'll do a status update, and then everyone's going to be able to meet the Dorr and Whittier OPM team, at which time Dorr and Whittier will be assisting us and giving us a presentation. And I've already seen two of their presentations, so I know it's wonderful. They're very, very thorough. And we will give you an update on the design selection process. It's very similar to what we went through with the OPM process. There are timelines and specific requirements. And then we'll just do a bit of a wrap up and give everybody the information on where we go from here. So what I will do at the moment is just give you that update. On April 6th, the selection board attended an online meeting with the members of the Mass School Building Authority. At that time, their OPM selection panel had reviewed all of our submitted documents. They looked at the material we provided regarding all of the items.
So we might have just missed it.
All of the items we looked at when we were deciding, who we wanted to hire. It was a lengthy process, and it was actually very, very good because we were able to narrow down our selections and, again, bring those forward. The selection panel at the MSBA spoke with Dorr and Whittier. We saw another presentation from Dorr and Whittier regarding their capabilities, their availability, all of the good pieces of their company that went into actually our selection. And when asked by the MSBA members, if we had anything to add, one point that I brought forward that I thought was important was MSBA had picked up on a lot of the great features that we here in Peabody had picked up on and were the reasons we wanted to hire Dorr and Whittier. We waited until the next day and we were notified that Dorr and Whittier was indeed selected by the MSBA to serve as our OPM. They approved our selection. So now what we're doing is we will be working with and be guided by Dorr and Whittier because they have a lot of experience. Well, I'm going to let them tell you. But they really bring a lot to the table, and I think it's going to be a wonderful project. I'm looking forward to working with them. I really am. I think the other members are as well. And for the larger group, for the full school building committee, I'm really very, very happy to be able to announce to you that Dorr and Whittier is our OPM on this project. So I will turn this over to Mike Burton and ask him to introduce his team to all of us. And then I know that Mike is going to have a presentation. So Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you if that's okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I trust you can see the agenda on your screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I am going to do exactly that. We have had the opportunity to meet with some of you, but not all of you. So we're going to share a little bit of information about Dorr and Whittier and our team that will be working with you on this project. So Dorr and Whittier is actually two companies there's Dorr & Whittier Architects and Dorr & Whittier Management Partners. Together, we are Dorr & Whittier. We have roughly 60 people in 2 offices, one located in Newburyport, Massachusetts, and one located in Burlington, Vermont. Our core business is Massachusetts public schools. That's what we do. Over 90% of our business is Massachusetts public schools. That's our focus, and that's what we thrive on. And so, what we think is a benefit to the city of Peabody is that we have a lot of in-house resources that we're going to make available through all of the MSBA modules that we're going to go through as we proceed with this project. We have a lot of in-house specialists. We have designers, we have PMs, we have FF&E consultants, we have educational programmers, schedulers, spec writers, and so forth. So we bring a lot of resources to the table. So although there's 5 team members listed here, all of those resources will be made available to the city of Peabody as we progress. We consider ourselves detailed and knowledgeable process managers, not just project managers, because when you're working with the MSBA, they have a very defined and linear module process, and we're very familiar with the process. Most of our jobs are MSBA core projects, which Welch Elementary School is as well. And so we're very familiar with that. So we're going to help you navigate your way working with the MSBA through the modules. We consider ourselves team leaders and collaborators. We like to approach this in a very collaborative effort. We want to make sure that once we do hire a designer, they're the right person for the team, and we're going to help them along the way. And then ultimately, should we decide to go CM at risk, the CM or GC will be on board, and working with those 3 key players, in addition to the city of Peabody, we're going to just work to solve problems as they come up and help foresee them and mitigate them. And again, so we have done several projects with the MSBA. What sets us apart? Because we are 2 firms, 2 specialties, we really bring the design and the project management side of things together, which is critical. It's helpful for when we're working with your architect that we're going to help select. And it also helps from a design side, for example, knowledge of building codes. As most people know, codes do evolve and change, and when they change, those can lead to change orders. And so since we're so very current on the design side, we have weekly meetings with our teams to talk about code changes, and we help to make sure that the design documents that we're ultimately going to produce for this project are up to date and no change orders as it relates to building codes. MSBA, since they're your partner in funding the project, they have some very specialized reporting tools and cost tools. We have developed a dashboard that is built around the MSBA ProPay process. And so as invoices come in, we are going to help to code them, show you how they get entered into ProPay, and we're going to assist the city of Peabody navigating the MSBA ProPay process in order to make sure that that funding is coming every 30 days from when we put in a application. We've also had extensive experience with renovation and ad renos, and we understood when we read the SOI that this job was probably leaning a little bit more towards a reno or an ad reno. Just so everybody is aware, the MSBA does require us to study 3 potential building solutions. It's reno, ad reno, and new. And so we do have to study that, but we think it lends itself probably more to a reno or possibly ad reno. But that's going to be part of the feasibility process where we have to vet those 3 building solutions and ultimately, working with the SBC, identify the right solution for the city of Peabody. And then clear and direct communications. I think as an OPM, one of the most important things is to make sure that all stakeholders are kept up to date as to what's going on. So there's not just the school building committee. We need to work with the community as a whole to help educate people about the project, educate people about the process, understand the benefits of partnering with the MSBA in terms of their reimbursement and so forth. And so communications is a big part of what we do, and we think we do that very successfully, and we're looking forward to working with the City of Peabody team here. So about our team, these are the 5 direct team members that have been presented, and so I will be in the role of project director. I've been doing this for about 28 years. I have a builder's license. Ultimately, I'm responsible for overall deliverables from Doran Whittier to the city of Peabody. I'm there to make sure that we're providing all the resources that are required and helping to help city of Peabody navigate through some of the risk and schedule and costs and all these things that are going to be big factors. And so ultimately, that's my role. Christina, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Shefferman. I'm the project manager for the Welch Elementary School project. I have over 10 years of experience in the construction industry. I've worked on multiple MSBA projects with Doran Whittier. I'm happy to be on your team. I focus mostly on communications and process. Like I said, I've worked on several MSBA projects, and so the process is key, and we're going to make sure that we're facilitating it with you as the owner from beginning to end of the project. And then with that, I'm going to switch it over to Mike Cox.
Thank you, Christina. Hi, I'm Mike Cox. I've been in the industry roughly 5 years now. As you can see, I'll be the project manager for controls. As Mike Burton had mentioned to you, we have a dashboard system. I will be managing that, as well as helping you guys kind of navigate through all of the financial deliverables that the MSBA requires, assisting in any questions or just general deliverables that we need throughout the process, as well as assisting the team in any other fashion possible. As you'll see, we're a collaborative group, and we'll all be working together. With that, I'll hand it off to Rachel.
Sorry, I was on mute. Hi, I'm Rachel Donner. I'm the assistant project manager. I've been working at Doran Whittier for over a year now, and before that, I was working in the FF&E world. So I'll be assisting the project team with meeting minutes, keeping proper documentation, and helping with communication. And I'm really excited to start working on this project with all of you.
And Terry, are you on?
I am on the phone. Can you hear me, Mike?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so hey folks, I'm actually not on the Zoom because I'm on a job site right now, but my name is Terry Hartford. I'll be the project manager for this project when it goes into construction. So just so folks are aware, I've got about 25 years of experience in the construction and development of many infrastructure projects, and really looking forward to moving on in this process, and looking forward to meeting all of you in person, hopefully sometime soon. So I'm going to pop back on a mute.
Okay. All right. So that's kind of a little bit about our team and our firm. I'll pause right there and just ask if anybody has any questions that we can address. And so I'll open it up to the SBC or anybody.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So moving forward, we wanted to talk a little bit about our next step. And as I said, the MSBA's process is very linear. This is right from their website. The way the MSBA looks at this, there's 8 modules. Can you guys see my mouse as I move it around? Okay.
Yep.
So you've completed eligibility period, which is module 1. Right now you are in module 2, which is forming the team. And then we will progress as we go down. And this first phase, if you will, that you've hired us for is to get us through the end of schematic design. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that overall timeline in a moment. But this is just so everybody's clear. The MSBA does have a great website. You click on MSBA's website and you click building with us, and it's a very defined and linear process. So for anybody who's interested in learning more about it, I do suggest you take a look at the website. And also, now that we're on board, which we're very happy to be, you can also reach out to us directly. And we're going to work to get a communication strategy in place once we have a working session subsequent to this meeting. So these are the MSBA modules. Again, we are in module 2, and that is called forming the team. And so you have made it through the OPM review panel. The next step for us is to get an architect on board, and going through that designer selection, procurement, and approval with the MSBA is what we're going to talk about a little bit more in detail now. Some other activities that we want to work on while we're procuring the architect is we need to understand a little bit more about this committee and all of your goals for the project, what you're looking to get out of it. And so we need to learn a little bit more about City of Peabody's and the SBC's goals for the project. We do have some kind of a kickoff questionnaire that we are going to send to the SBC members that just ask some questions, and we'll follow up with that shortly. But ultimately, we want to know what's important to you, and we're going to use the information that we get back. That'll sort of be our rudder as we navigate through this process. We also want to establish a timeline, which I'm going to hit in an overview level now, and then we'll get into more detail as we progress. Program definition. The educational program is really going to help support the building solution that we are going to ultimately choose. And so we can, once the architect's on board, they're going to work in more detail, but we don't want to lose any time. And so to the extent that we can start helping the City of Peabody and getting that educational program defined, that's going to be very important. And that's something that we can work on now that we're on board.
Good.
And then also we want to work to assumptions about the existing building. We know a lot of stuff has happened, but we want to put together as much of a package so that we can hand off to the architect once they're on board, so they can hit the ground running. So we're going to use this time to learn a little bit more about the buildings, the deficiencies, and then ultimately with your goals, once the architect comes on board, they can hit the ground running. So that's module 2, sort of in a nutshell. And this is a timeline slide that we had presented for the MSBA OPM review panel. And so, forming the team, module 2 here is on the left. We were hoping to target a mid-June designer selection meeting. It looks like their schedule won't allow that. We did receive an email from MSBA last night. It looks like the July 7th is the earliest designer selection panel meeting that we can attend. And then after the architect is on board and we complete forming the team, that's when we move into module 3, which is feasibility study. And this is where we have to look at the multiple options that are going to be pursued. You have to put a report together for each of these options. At the end of that, you submit a preferred schematic report, which is where of all of the options, you tell the MSBA which one we think is the most advantageous for the City of Peabody. And that whole feasibility process usually takes about 8 months. The last 2 months are usually for MSBA approvals. So right now, without having the benefit of having a more detailed discussion with the SBC or with a working group, we think 8 months is a fairly conservative timeline for the feasibility study. Once you complete module 3, you're into schematic design. This is where you've chosen your building solution, and you're going to put a lot more detailed drawings together to help look at that and help estimate it and understand the pricing. We feel again that this process is going to be roughly around 8 months. I think we could go quicker, but right now this is what we've gone through with the MSBA, and they do have the note at the bottom: all dates are tentative and subject to change based on district and MSBA schedules. So MSBA does have some scheduling issues sometimes, but right now I think this is a good high level kind of plan for where we're headed. So if all that was to come to fruition, we would probably be looking for somewhere around October of 2021 to get approval from the MSBA and work with the City of Peabody on any approvals required therefore. So that's a little bit about the timeline. So for the designer selection, this is a little bit more detailed view. So right now, we're on line number 3. We're at our kickoff meeting. What we want to do, our next immediate task, is to develop and approve a designer request for services. And we do have a draft completed. We've received input from Dan Doucette. We are going to look to get that reviewed and approved by April 28th, so we can submit that to MSBA on the 29th. From there, once we get comments back from the MSBA, that document is now ready to go, and we have to put that in the central register. So we believe that following this timeline, the designer RFS will be out on the streets, if you will, from May 13th, and the proposals will be due on June 9th. During that time, we should, well, you typically have a designer walkthrough. And so what we're seeing now as a result of the COVID crisis here, we've seen other districts hold a virtual walkthrough. And one example that I shared with Dan Doucette was the facilities manager and a couple other folks had essentially put together a YouTube video where they walked around, they looked at the building, they essentially did a virtual walkthrough, and they made that video link available. And so because of the social distancing issues we're experiencing right now, we think we have a workaround to keep the ball rolling. So that'll be something that we're looking for the SBC to kind of agree with that strategy or not. So from there, once the proposals are due, there will be a vetting process that we can perform, and Christina's going to talk a little bit more about that. And then ultimately, there's going to be 3 members from the SBC that go to the DSP, which is the Designer Selection Panel. And I apologize if I'm saying a lot of acronyms, and if you don't know, please put your hand up. I have a tendency to put a lot of acronyms out there, but essentially there's going to be 3 people that go to the Designer Selection Panel and work with the MSBA to ultimately pick the designer that that we feel is the best for the project, and hopefully MSBA agrees with that. And we're going to walk you through that strategy as we continue. So typically, after you have that initial meeting with the Designer Selection Panel, 2 weeks later, almost all the time, they call for an interview. And so the 7th will be reading the proposals, and then they'll say, yes, we believe we would like to call in 3 for interviews, and that's 2 weeks later. So I have that around the 22nd. And then after that, I have a week to finalize the contract. And then so what I think we're looking at is a kickoff meeting with an architect at the end of July. Okay, and so from there, that kicks us into 6 months of feasibility plus the 2 for MSBA approvals. That's the 8 months I was referring to on the previous slide. And then same thing for schematic design and MSBA approvals. So does anybody have any questions on this timeline so far?
I don't think so, Mike.
Okay. All right. So Christina, you want to walk through this?
Yes. So as Mike did a high level kind of overview and schedule for you as far as the RFS and the DSP process, just wanted to kind of get into more details describing what that process means and how it relates to the SBC. So ultimately today, coming out of our meeting, we would like to establish a working group / subcommittee to review and approve the RFS. And there's a couple different ways that we can do this. We can either have the subcommittee have the authority to ultimately approve the RFS for publishing, or we could have the subcommittee just review the draft of the RFS and then provide a recommendation to the SBC for approval in the next couple of weeks. We can talk about that after I kind of go through this slide, but just wanted to share with you that I'm going to share my screen number 2 so you guys can take a look at that. This is the RFS draft that we've been working with Dan on the last couple of weeks. Dan provided us with some comments on the general boilerplate MSBA RFS. I've incorporated a lot of those comments and details into this draft. There are some couple additional comments that I'd like to review with that subcommittee following today's meeting, but ultimately just showing you that we've been working on an RFS that reflects the city of Peabody and the Welch Elementary School that we should have ready in the next couple of days for final review with that subcommittee.
Christina, I can't see the document. Are you sharing that?
I'm sorry.
I couldn't, were you sharing the RFS on your screen? I can't see it.
Oh, can anyone see it or no?
I
Yeah.
I can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
You
as long
can
as
see
they
it? Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is just, it's a boilerplate document that the MSBA has on their website. There's a lot of room within the boilerplate where you can put in some general information as far as background, project goals, general scope. There's a lot of details in this, and like I'd like to go over that with the subcommittee once we establish that, so we can talk about the information that was inputted as far as also some other outstanding questions that we have. But I can put this on. So I have established an FTP site for this project as well. It's a SharePoint FTP that everyone, once I get everyone's emails for the SBC, I can share with. Ultimately, that's where all of our documents will live for our SBC group. Everything from meeting minutes to agendas to meeting topics, things like the RFS, DSP process, whatever it may be, is a good place for all of us to share all of our files, and I can notify you, or we can notify you when anything is uploaded, so you're aware of what's within, what documents are within that FTP. So following today's meeting, I'll make sure I'll give access to the full SBC so that you're aware of where we're keeping all of our documents and where they lie for this project. Mike, do you want to go back to the presentation?
Yeah, if you could just hit stop sharing.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. All right, can everybody see that SBC request for service up top? Okay, great.
So ultimately, following the subcommittee and the review of the final RFS, once we receive proposals from the architects, we have a reference checklist and a proposal ranking and review matrix that we would like to share with the full SBC. So that way there's some involvement from the group as far as their input on the proposals received and the architect's background and information. Once we do have the full SBC fill out the checklist as well as the review matrix, we ultimately will want to have an SBC meeting to discuss the details of those matrices and checklists. And then we would like then the SBC to provide a recommendation to the DSP Selection Committee. And as I have here on the screen, you'll see, according to the DSP rules and regulations, there are 3 members from the SBC or from the city that need to be appointed that will act as the DSP Selection Committee as for the MSBA DSP meetings that are going to be scheduled, as Mike pointed out in the schedule before. So the designated 3 members are listed right here. 1 member needs to be designated by the SBC School Committee or Board of Trustees. 1 member shall be the Superintendent of Schools. And then the 3rd member should be either the CEO, the city or town, and or a member of the SBC or school committee if the CEO or that member could not be part of the selection committee. So following today, I know Mike has a slide further down, but those are ultimately our goals for today is to review and approve a subcommittee for the RFS, as well as review and approve the 3 members for the DSP Selection Committee.
Yep. So just to kind of park on that topic right there. So is everybody comfortable with the idea of creating a working group? Could be, 3 to 5, 6 people to review the designer RFS. And then do we want to empower that group to be able to approve that document to go out to bid or to go out to the central register? Or would this group rather have a working group go and come back and make a recommendation to the SBC as a whole? So Beverly, I would ask your opinion on those 2 strategies, with keeping in mind that ultimately we would need to approve something by April 28th so we can get that to the MSBA on the 29th.
Right, and that I just got up to get my calendar to check on some dates. I will be honest, and I am going to put it out to the committee members. This is very similar to what we did with the open process. And one of the things that we have done at, I don't have the date on hand at the moment, but we took a vote to authorize the selection panel to issue the request for services. I would recommend that again, especially right now. This is an even tighter time frame. And in order to be able to meet that April 29th date, we would end up having to reschedule and have another full meeting of this board, the full board. So if someone would be willing to make a motion that a selection panel of volunteers be allowed to work on the preparation of the RFS and to be authorized to issue that. That would allow us the time to have that document go straight into MSBA and work its way through their process.
Beverly?
Yes.
Yeah, are you suggesting that it be the same subcommittee, or are you envisioning selecting a different subcommittee based upon these criteria and what Mr. Burton's talked about this morning?
Well, actually, I will be honest with you. The DPS Selection Committee requirement that's listed in front of you on Mike's slide is actually different than the working group.
Right.
The subcommittee, the working, I should call it the working group. The working group would be similar to what we did. Beth McGivern, Pete McGinn, Jim Hafey, Joe Scanlon, Dan Doucette, and myself were the ones who were dealing with the going through the applications. Well, let me back up. That was the group that was originally working on the language for the OPM RFS. And seriously, Dan Doucette, Dan, I'm going to sing your praises till the day I die. It was a huge project, and Dan guided us greatly through that. The working group for the designer selection, I envision that doing the same amount of work, working on the RFS. And of course, now we have the input of Doran Whittier as well, which is going to help a lot. Because they talk the same language as Dan and Joe Scanlon. So here we go. But they would also be the people that would then go through the applications, narrow down, and help to select the recommended architectural firm. But that selection and that recommendation is down the road. What would happen right now would be to allow a small subgroup. At the moment, I'm already going to assign it to Dan because he's already been working on this. Joe Scanlon, you would need to be involved because you're our MCPPO authorized person. And then I will take volunteers. If anyone is still willing to do this, because I know it's a lot of work, and it really is very interesting, and it's very it's very worthwhile. So I would ask anyone who would like to volunteer for that, just shoot me an email, let me know you're interested in it. But at the moment, this would be an authorization for whoever is on that working group to be able to prepare the RFS and submit it for publication. It's basically boilerplate language that everyone utilizes. Peabody has been putting in very specific things which have helped us greatly already with our selection on the OPM, and I know that that type of work will go forward. But the original, this preliminary submission of a document is one that I would say is very standard. And this vote would authorize the working group to just submit that standard. Basically, it's an advertisement to the MSBA.
Yeah,
And
I guess,
Mike, if you have anything, if you wanted to add anything to that, or Dan.
Yeah, I was just going to say that just so everybody's aware, the document is pretty boilerplate. There are a couple of opportunities to customize it to our project, which we've done with Dan's input.
Yeah.
You know, I would say that, you know, Dan is certainly a good person to have on there, Joe as well. And, you know, I don't know if there's another member or two that would be interested in reviewing that document. But, you know, I went through it with my team this morning. We think we're in a pretty good place. We think that with one meeting with this smaller group, we should be able to iron out any of the last couple of issues. And so I think we're actually in very good shape. And the purpose of forming the committee is just to allow us to move quickly and be ready to submit to the MSBA by the 29th.
Yeah. And Dan, do you have anything to add to that?
My first reading of the MSBA document as it's set up now is that it's form and structure very similar to the package that we put out for the OPM.
Yeah.
It asks for things like things like that. There's a lot of cut we did to set up the OPM solicitation can be duplicated.
Right.
The only thing.
Oh, Dan, you're breaking up. Is everybody else having trouble hearing Dan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dan, you're breaking up.
Yeah. I'm on a home. My wife is working remotely, so our internet is.
I understand.
I'll have to remember to go into the office. So one thing that I have as a takeaway from soliciting for designers is that, again, experience. I think that was selecting our OPM, and I think selecting we do not want somebody whose experience the MSBA core program is on our. So that is an additional requirement that I just this is an opportunity for concurrence by the members of the building committees.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my.
I couldn't hear most of what Dan said, but Beverly, so in this model, are you envisioning that the mayor would have Dan as his designee? Or is the mayor interested in serving on this?
Oh.
This is the model that is being put before us, that the superintendent of schools, Dr. Kerbel, I don't know if you're envisioning on being on this or.
That actually, I will be honest with you. What you're looking at, those 3 members from the school building committee, those are the 3 bodies that would actually travel into Boston the day that there is a meeting with the MSBA. They are a bit, this is different.
Okay.
Than the subgroup, the working group that we're talking about at the moment.
Is that right, Mr. Burton? Is that what you're?
That's correct.
Okay, I'm sorry, then I misunderstood. So
nope, that's okay.
Yeah, and they're ultimately 2 different groups.
They are, yeah.
We're looking just for approval for a subcommittee to review the RFS for publishing for MSBA review. And then the second recommendation for approval is for a DSP selection consisted of those 3 members as listed on.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I will be honest, just for I will say for efficiency's sake, I would like to ask if Beth McGivern and Pete McGinn, Jim Hafey, and then of course Dan and Joe Scanlon, if you folks would serve again right at the moment to help with the review of this document, because you are the most experienced people currently on our school building committee. This would be just looking at the RFS, which seriously, it's like a cut and paste. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dan and Mike. It's like a cut and paste of what we put out for the OPM, and they take out the word OPM and they put in, what are the letters for the designer? I can't even
Yeah, I
remember.
mean, it's basically just some dates that are added. There's some
Yeah.
background information because we're looking at more the building and the systems review.
Mhm.
There's an outline with dates for specifically the different feasibility, schematic, DD, the different milestones that are incorporated within that. And then there's several attachments, if you will. So anything as far as a study that may have been performed or anything as far as the SOI or backup that we can provide, we want to make sure that those attachments are also included.
Right. And the thing at the moment is the heaviest work seriously was the review of the applications and the presentations that were submitted to us for OPMs. And it was, and I'm being honest, you folks saw my my audiovisual presentation at the last meeting. Mike, and just so you and your team know, I brought in a shopping bag with all of the documents provided to us by all of the OPM applicants, just as a visual to honestly to thank the people who had served on that selection board, because it was a lot of hours. It was a lot of ranking and grading, and that part was very involved. And if I've scared them off, it was an honest fright. So at the moment, if those folks would be willing to serve again, just on this paperwork, and I would understand if you wanted to switch out and have someone else, step in to do that ultimate review, which, I can perfectly understand it, although it was fun, you have to admit it. What I would like to ask if Beth and Jim, if you would be willing, and Pete, I'm sorry, Beth, Jim, and Pete, would you be willing to help with this review of the documentation at the moment?
Yeah, Bev, I've already sent you an email. I'll be on that if you want.
I knew I didn't lose you. Good.
I would also do it, Beth.
Thank you, Beth. Okay. And then Pete, I know Pete had to leave this meeting early. Pete, you're not here at the moment, right? Okay. We're going to do what we always do to someone who misses a meeting. We're going to appoint them to something. So,
Bev, if I could do is use the distribution list of the OPM and add in Doran Whittier.
That would be perfect, Dan, actually, because then we would be ready to start working on this right away, and we would have it done in time, to stick with these timelines so that everyone online understands what Dan and the selection committee did. They really stressed in the documentation the need for a really, what's the word we'll use, aggressive timetable, because we know everyone wants to get this project done quickly. And that was another reason why we chose Doran Whittier, because of their commitments with very fine timelines on the projects they've worked on and really innovative ways of getting a job done. So having that type of language carry through with the designer is really taking into account all of the opinions of this larger school building committee. And I can assure you that's going forward in this documentation. So what I would like to do is, I think we need two motions. One would be to continue with the current working group that we had in place for the OPM selection, and to keep that group working for the time being. So if I could have a motion on that first, and then the second motion I would need would be to allow that working group to submit the RFS for the designer selection. That would help with timelines. So for the first motion, if there's anybody that would like to make that, and I have all of everyone who's attending, and I'll take a vote.
Bev, I forget, if I have voting member, I'll make the motion.
Yes, you are. Okay, thank you, Joe. Okay, and your motion is to continue the working group.
Yes,
Okay, and to work on the RFS for designer.
mhm.
Okay, and that working group, so everyone knows again, it was me, Dan Doucette, Jim Hafey, Joe Scanlon, Beth McGiven, and Pete McGinn. And we will include Doran Whittier on that workload. Okay. So I'm going to do a roll call. Oh, wait a minute. I need a second. Is there a second?
Second,
And that was by Jim?
yeah.
Okay. All right. Roll call. Beth?
Yes.
Okay. Ed Colbert?
Yes.
Jim Hafey?
Yeah.
Dan Doucette? Oh, Dan, you don't vote. Sorry. Deb Hewitt?
Yes.
Thank you. Jared Hockman?
Yes.
Thank you. Jillian Gonzalez?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, thanks. Joe Scanlon?
Yes.
Okay. Kara Magliozzi?
Yes.
Okay. Mark Kerbel? Oh. Mark? Let's see. Is Mark muted?
Yes, and Beverly, I'm sorry, I lost action. So,
Oh, okay. Oh, Mark, what you said was garbled, but I did hear the word yes. Okay. I've got my selective hearing on here. Mike Ingris, you don't vote. Michelle Massa?
Yes.
Okay, and Pete McGinn. All right, that was just, I was being nice. I know Pete's not here. He had told me earlier he would come but had to leave. And I vote yes. Okay, that motion passes. Now, the next motion that I actually need is just a motion to authorize the working group to publish the RFS for designer selection.
So moved.
Thank you, Jared. Okay.
And I almost had it. Come on.
Who is that? Oh, Joe.
Yes, yeah. I was ready.
You can second it.
I'll second it. There you go.
Here we go. All right. Everybody's happy. Okay. Again, I will do another roll call. Beth McGiven.
Yes.
Okay. Ed Colbert.
Yes.
Okay. Jim Hafey.
yes.
All right. Deb Hewitt.
Yes.
Thank you. Jared.
Yes.
Thank you. Jillian.
Yes.
Okay. Joe Scanlon.
Yes.
All right. Kara Migliozzi.
Yes.
Mark. Mark Kerbel. Okay. Michelle Massa.
Yes.
Okay. I'll try Mark one more time. Mark Kerbel, are you still there?
Yes,
Oh, okay. Would you like to vote on the second motion?
yes.
Okay, thank you. And I vote yes as well. Okay, so right now we're going to have that same working group. You'll be busy, but not like last time. And then we will be working with the Doran Whittier team, and we will submit that as soon as possible, which is honestly the priority always on this job, is to get it done and get it done as early as we can. Okay. Now, Mike, is there anything further that you need from us for today?
Yeah, there is one other thing, but I just had a quick question.
Sure.
So can you confirm the total number of members on the SBC?
Oh, my goodness. Actually,
Voting members too.
the voting members too. Yes, actually, can I send that all to you in an email? I have a whole printout for you that I didn't get to you this morning.
That'd
Okay.
be great.
Perfect.
Yep, because we've got some members on the building committee who are voting and some who are not.
Right.
So that would be really good. And I
Yeah.
also, I have all the other votes. Although you may have those, we can talk about that. Those were all submitted to MSBA. I don't know if they provide those to you or not, but we can, so you'll have a full file.
Yeah, so just the reason I asked is I just want to make sure that any working group that we establish is below the quantity required for a quorum.
Yes.
And so I think with those names you just listed, that's 6. So if we're 12 and over, we're okay.
Yeah. And actually it's 5 because Dan Doucette is on that committee, but not a voting member.
Okay, so 5 is your quorum limit.
I think it's a bit higher. I do
Okay.
think it's a bit higher. I will check. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me at the moment.
Okay,
Yeah,
no
yeah,
worries.
no problem. And so, you know, one thing that I did have some offline discussions with Dan about is that what's helpful for us at this point is to, you know, through module 1 eligibility, I'm sure you had a ton of correspondence with MSBA.
Oh, God, yes.
And to the extent that you can make that available to us using that FTP site that we shared, that's always
Yes.
helpful for us. And so we can work on that as we move forward, but that would be very helpful.
Yep.
So for new business, I guess, we wanted to talk schedule. Do you currently have a date for the next SBC? And is it a recurring monthly, or how have you guys been working thus far?
We have actually been having a monthly meeting, and as I promised the MSBA, we're not letting a little thing like a worldwide pandemic keep us off our schedule. So we're going to stick with that schedule. Our next meeting, as I said, we can adjust it because it was working around believe it or not, the school parking lot.
I believe it.
So we were being careful of that. But I would say we also had based it around the availability of our school staff. We were meeting at the Welch. So we always wanted to be respectful and mindful of their scheduling of the room. But in general, we met on the 3rd Thursday of the month. And if that, I know for you, Friday worked better. And I would just ask everyone on the committee, would Friday, May 15th at 10 a.m. work for folks?
It works for me, Bev.
Okay.
8:12, it's all right.
Okay.
Works for me.
All right. And Michelle, I don't know if we'll be back in school at that point. If we are back in school, would that work for the building?
That would be fine.
Okay. All right. I'm always optimistic, but if not, we've got technology, thank heavens. Is there anyone it creates a big problem for? Okay. And Mike, for you and your team, is that a good time for you and your folks?
Yep, that's fine. And I just pulled the schedule back up to see where we will be during the next meeting, which would be 5:15. And so that will be 2 days after the advertisement is out there.
Yeah.
And so what I'll need some help on is that that designer walkthrough that I spoke about. We'll probably have to work with Jim and figure out a way to, you know, get into the building, do a video, make that available. And so is that something that I should work directly with Jim on, or do we?
Yes.
Yeah, please do, Mike.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't think we need to vote a working group or anything like that. But so if we meet again on the 15th, we'll just provide an update as to where we are in the designer procurement process. I think we should probably plan the next one.
One for June?
Yeah, I'm thinking around mid-June. So if we're doing 5:15, 6:15-ish or thereabouts would probably be a good bogey.
Yeah, it brings us up to either June 12th or June 19th. Those are the 2 dates close by there.
You said 6:15, Mike?
Yeah, because
Well,
it's a
actually,
Monday.
you know what? Maybe what we could do is, so the proposals for the designers are going to be in our hands on June 9th. We can scan those and make those available to to the SBC, maybe give people some time to kind of digest that information. So if we get those on the 9th, perhaps the 11th or 12th. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, even the 15th would work, because that would give them a little over a week to review it. And then we could then have a meeting about the reference checklist, as well as filling out the matrix by then. So we could have some sort of review on the 15th of the proposals with everyone's input.
Is that for the full school committee? I'm sorry, full school building committee, or would that be for the working group?
For the full school building committee.
Okay. All right. So the 15th is a Monday. The 19th is a Friday. Do you want to do it that week? Do you want to stick with the 15th or go to the Friday, the 19th? When would that fall?
I would say the 15th.
15th? Okay. All right. And is there anyone in the committee that has a problem with a meeting on the 15th? That's a Monday. Okay, and we'll stick with the 10 a.m. start time, if that helps. Okay. All right, if there's no problem with that, we'll do June 15th for the following school building committee.
Okay. So those are the next two meetings. We did establish this committee already, the RFS approval.
Mhm.
Do we want to establish the three members that this is the other committee or the other group that will actually physically go to Boston and represent the city at the DSP panel? And that goes back to the requirements listed here. Do we want to just go ahead and name those names now, or is...
Actually, on something like that, I'll be deferring to the mayor's input on that. So
Okay.
I'm going to hold off.
Okay, no problem. That's a great segue to my next working group that I think we should establish. Typically, we put together kind of an executive working group that deals with some of the more detailed stuff, like, contract executions, financials, invoices, payments, city of Peabody approval process. And this is kind of, the getting into the weeds a little bit. And some of the stuff that we discussed with this group is not really needed to be in this particular forum, and don't need to drag everybody's time going over some of this stuff. So I was speaking with Dan. It sounds like that's something that has been utilized on other projects. And so I would ask if we could select sort of a working group to deal with some of those nuts and bolts type stuff. And so,
actually, I'll be honest with you, Mike, this is another
Dan, I didn't know if you wanted to, add to that, or...
This is another one where we would be sitting down with the mayor to hammer that out. We do have some things in place,
okay,
actually very similar to the Higgins project as well. So that would be something with that small meeting with the mayor, and we can get that all prepared for you.
Okay.
Actually, some of this is already in place. Some of those
Okay.
some of those are in place. Okay, and we just need to give you the names.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. So I'll follow up with you on that. And then just the last thing, as I mentioned, once we get the full list of emails for the SBC members, we're going to be sending you out just a little questionnaire that's going to ask you some questions about the project. And if you could take some time and get those back to us, we'll put the Christina, what do you want to give them for a turnaround time?
Just by our next SBC, I would say at least a week before our next SBC meeting. So I have to gather all the details together and lay it out in a chart for you, so that we can go over some of the goals, questions, concerns, general comments that we had within our questionnaire about getting to know you as an SBC and also as a project. That way we can really help identify those for our group moving forward.
That's great. Thank you for doing that. I think that's wonderful.
No problem.
Yeah, it's all online. It should take you about 10 minutes. And so if our next meeting is on 5/15, why don't we just say the due date would be 5/8?
Okay.
That gives you 3 weeks. So it should be fairly light lift.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's all I had to discuss. So I would turn it back to the chair or the group for questions, comments, or other.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Christina. Thank you. This has really been a very nice presentation, and believe me, we appreciate this. As far as questions, comments, I'm going to open it up. Would any of the members like to discuss anything? If you have questions, please feel free to bring them up right now. Take the mute off your mic. Go ahead. And how are you all doing? There we go. We'll get you going. Come on, you're never this quiet.
Oh, Jared's muted.
Oh, Jared, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. I just said I thought this was an extremely productive meeting, and I want to thank everyone that made it that by putting the time in to prepare for what we talked about this morning. I thank Beverly for chairing the committee and doing a great job with that, and everyone else for their volunteerism and participation. I allotted about an hour for this meeting, and we're right about there. So I will say goodbye to everybody, and hope you're all well, and hope that you all stay well. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Jared.
you.
Take it easy.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jared. I'm all set. Just letting everybody know, I did record this. I have a hearing impairment, so I'll go through the text notes later, and summarize the action. But I feel very good. I think everything is moving along extremely well. Very impressed with your company.
Yeah.
That is a good reminder. So now that we're on board, we will be doing meeting minutes. And so I'm sure you saw Rachel typing away there. So we're going to put together our version of the meeting minutes. And then typically what we'll do is a few days prior to the next SBC meeting, we will share those meeting minutes and give you the opportunity to review them. And then usually our first agenda item on meetings going forward will be the approval of those minutes. And so that's how we can record votes and things of that nature. And so just wanted to make sure you were aware that
Beverly.
You can see me, yes. Did you see that huge weight just go off my shoulder?
Yeah.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you. Oh my God, this is heaven.
Oh, does she realize she no longer has to do that?
My God, my minutes, because I talk too much. My minutes are very cryptic and I have to spend hours, redoing them. On the Higgins project, we had a full-time secretary doing it. And
wow.
for a while. So yay. You don't even need my mic to hear this.
Hey, Mike, excuse me, Mike.
Boy, am I glad we picked you.
Will there be a shared drive, like a setup where the documents will be? I'm trying to remember what it used to be called. I don't know if it's just a Google Drive or.
Yep. So Christina sent out, and if you haven't gotten it yet, we can resend it. Well, actually, Christina, why don't you just walk them through it?
Yeah, I actually only had a couple members email ads.
Right.
Beverly sends me the full list. I will be sending out a link to our FTP SharePoint drive. Going to be our general location for all documents as far as the SBC goes. So everything from agendas to meeting minutes, meeting topics, DSP, whatever it may be, it will be all located within that FTP SharePoint. So once you receive the link, you should be able to open it and access all the files and download whatever necessary.
Yeah.
And you can see Mike's pulling up on the screen the file that I already created for our project. So I'll make sure I clean this up a little bit and outline our first meeting, put all the proper documentation within there. And then that way everyone has access to the files.
Oh, this is heaven.
Thank you. That was exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah.
I just had a thought as I was listening that I remember I mentioned that there was a, the video made of the walkthrough. And Bev, I remember you asking about that before. And I'm wondering, could there be a subdirectory and where you could post, videos of your walkthroughs? That way, if we're presenting, Jared, Bev want to show the school committee, they can just bring it right up on the screen.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we could create a YouTube video and then copy the YouTube video link and save it right here. That the SBC has access to it and then can download it and view it.
Yeah.
That would be fine. And people don't have to be very professional video. I mean, with all this Zoom conferencing, we've lowered the standard of casual in this. So they can walk around in, tank tops and cutoff and we're okay.
To each his own.
Any other members want to say anything? No? You're all doing well, though? That's the most important thing.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, I'm just really excited to get the ball rolling.
Isn't this nice? I mean, this is a huge step forward, and it really is a big step. Yeah. And I'm going to give a shout out to Ed Colbert. Ed, you got on and you did it very well. You're on the Zoom.
Yeah, thank you. Not bad for an old guy.
I'm proud of you, Ed.
Thank you.
Oh, very good.
Good luck to all of us.
That's right. That's right. Well, our next steps, does anybody else want to chime in? Feel free. Okay. The next step, what we're going to do, of course, we're going to have our regular monthly meeting. We'll have that small working group working on the side with the language for that RFS and the posting of it. And Mike, just so that you and the Dorn Whittier team know, I would love to invite you to just come into a school committee meeting for maybe 5 or 10 minutes just to say hi. We can talk about it, offline, off of this, but really, right now you're doing so much for us, and I really appreciate what you've done. And this has been a great meeting. I will be sending you all that information about our membership and all of the contact information. And we'll be moving forward, everyone. So thank you again. It's so good to know we're going to keep the project online, on track, and going to have a beautiful product in the end. Oh, I know one thing. Mike, I had stepped out of the room during today's presentation. Did you put up your example that you had provided to us of the two schools? They were very similar to the Welch. And it was a project you had worked on. I think, was it Wellesley?
Wellesley.
Yeah, Wellesley.
Okay. Did you show the full committee that presentation today?
I did not. Let me see if I can pull that up. Bear with me for one moment.
Okay. Folks, I know, many of you may have to hop off, but if you can stay. This was for me, and I think for the other members too. This was the really, okay, the way I put it was, I felt like Dorn Whittier read my mind about the Welch School project. And I don't mean to, to prejudge anything, especially our project, but the things that they did on this project for 2 elementary schools sounded so similar to what we've talked about at our meetings. And when this was presented to that selection board, I know it really hit a chord with me, and I think it did with every other member too. There were a lot of reasons why we chose Dorn Whittier, and you've already seen most of them this morning. I'm not kidding you. But this, go ahead, Mike. I'm turning it over to you again. Everybody take a look and hear what they did. It's really cool.
All right. So, okay, I am unmuted. That's a good start. So one of the things that when we were researching the project, and we took some time going through the SOI and trying to familiarize ourselves as much as we could with some of the issues at the Welch Elementary School. It really reminded me of this project that I had done in Wellesley, non-MSBA project, but Wellesley does pretty much everything else through them, so they adopted the same process, if you will. But what these are, up top, you can see on the left, this is the existing Fisk Elementary School. It was a K through 5, roughly 4,200 square feet. And then below that is Schofield Elementary, also a K through 5, similar size, roughly 48,000 square feet. And both of these projects were done simultaneously. And so what did we do there? The scope pretty much seemed very similar to, again, what I was kind of reading between the lines, what the SOI was saying. So we did both of these projects over the course of 2 summers, because as we were looking at it, the cost for modulars was very high, and town of Wellesley was doing this on their own dime, and so going out and spending a few million in modulars wasn't really an option. So they challenged us to come up with a solution to do the project basically over the summer. And, it's what some people call the summer slammer approach. And unfortunately, that's how a lot of school projects go. But what we were able to do is we were able to break it up into essentially 2 phases or 2 summers. And so summer number 1 was everything inside both of those buildings, and I'll go through that in a minute. And then summer number 2 was everything outside the building. So summer 1 interior, summer 2 exterior. So the summer 1 or phase 1 included abatement of both facilities. All of the windows got replaced. We stripped out all of the MEP infrastructures. They had unit ventilators there. Those were all taken out. We had abatement behind the unit ventilators. We did all that. New plumbing upgrades, all new electrical switch gear right from the transformer. One of the schools added a fire protection system, which it did not have. And then as you get into these renovation projects, once you hit triggers based on the % of construction work versus the assessed value of the building, you're going to hit triggers related to accessibility, life safety, and accessibility, so ADA upgrades. And so because we went over that trigger on the renovation, we were required to do ADA upgrades around. In this building here in Fisk, we actually added a small addition for the elevator because they did not have one and they could not seek a variance on that. And then basically we tried to go into each classroom and make it feel like it was a new classroom. So they had new windows and they had new unit ventilators and new lights, and new ceilings and new casework. And we painted everything. So when the kids came back, they felt like they were walking into a new building. So, and then summer 2, we had paving. You can see here, we had to redo all of the paving around both projects. And we took those opportunities to correct some circulation issues here. So Schofield, pick up and drop off, the parents would be queuing out on the main road, which was a big problem for them. And so we were able to enhance the queuing here by the addition of a few lanes. We were also able to get some more parking over at Fisk, which was a huge issue for them. And so we were able to capture all this stuff within those 2 summers. And so just some of the details, the total construction cost for both of those schools was roughly $8 million a school. We utilized the CM at risk approach. We found that, working on an aggressive schedule like that, you gotta be cooperative, you gotta have a good team. And because we were utilizing the CM at risk approach, we were able to work with the CM as the job went, and instead of getting issued delayed claims and other change orders, we were able to work with them on site. We were there full time. We required the architect to be there full time because we didn't have the opportunity where if an unforeseen condition came up, like it usually does in a renovation, that we were able to respond to that almost immediately. almost the same day. Because if we're on site, the architect's on site, and the CM's all there, we can identify a problem and solve it right then and there. And so that allowed us to get both of those phases done and on time. We did not need any swing space as a result of that. Both of the schools were completed on time with no impacts to school operations. You know, safety is hugely important when you're doing a summer slammer, as I said, and you're working 6 days a week, extended hours. That's when people, you know, can put themselves at risk for incidents. We were able to stagger the manpower, and we had a strong safety program with a construction manager, and we ultimately completed it with no safety incidents. And then, you know, we had some savings. We ended up turning back $1 million to the town of Wellesley, and that was even after they had kind of added their own scope at the end, because when they got to the end, they saw that we had some contingency money, so they utilized some of that to add some additional scope. So I don't know, could be a similar scenario. Of course, we are required to study all three. But, you know, I think that, to me, this really resonated in something that we felt was important to share with this group as well.
Thank you, Mike. And to all the members still on, this hearing the presentation really was so similar to the different considerations that we had all discussed, you know, for the past few months about Welch, and the organizational model of, they had everything ordered, and the day that the kids left school, Dorn Whittier and their team went in. Like, they had all the windows. Remember how, you know, the windows take a long time to scope out, the 12 weeks? They already had all the windows 16 on site. Oh, was it 16? Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. And they had everything ready to go on site on the last day of school, and they started right away. And as he said, they worked 6 days a week all the way through the summer. So there was no disruption to the program. There was no disruption for the kids. I mean, that was amazing to hear about it and to see the impact that that could have for us. And I don't mean to prejudge our project. Every project is different. We will have all kinds of different considerations to look at. But I just thought you might enjoy seeing that and hearing about it, and seeing that, you know, what we talked about actually is possible. And it was a great presentation, and those are two great projects. So if anybody has any questions for Mike or the team, feel free to go ahead. Okay. All right. Okay, well, if there's nothing further, I will let everyone go with good wishes to all of you for staying healthy. Wash your hands. Thank you to anyone from the public that may have watched this. If anyone in the public has questions, feel free to send them in an email to me, and I'd be happy to get the information for you. And if there's nothing else, I think we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, Deb, thank you. Second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. It's nice to see you all.
Take care.
See you too.
You too.